This podcast is supported by patrons. You can find a full list of them in the description of this episode.
Hello, my listeners. This is Wiktor Doctor and Good Morning BSS World podcast. Today with a special guest directly from Las Vegas. And my guest is Shelli Ryan. Hi, Shelli.
Hey, Victor. How's it going?
Very well. To be honest, I still have in mind our meetings in Las Vegas nearly 2 weeks ago, during the CXO 2022 conference, where you were a speaker and you were talking about blockchain in CX. In a moment, we will go deeper in that subject, but I will let you to introduce yourself to my listeners. So just tell us who you are.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Victor. And I'm glad that you were able to join us back in Las Vegas 2 weeks ago. That's actually my third CX Outsourcer event. We had Vegas, then we had Windsor, and then we came back to Vegas. So yeah, it's fantastic. A little bit about myself is I started as a technologist and then turned marketer, and about 34 years in the contact center BPO space worldwide. I run an organization called the CX Blockchain Institute, and we help implement blockchain in call centers. So that's a little bit about me. I'm in Las Vegas, and like you and I had talked about earlier, it's a little bit early in Vegas, but that's all right. I'm happy to be on the podcast today.
Yeah, this is good to mention to our listeners that I am calling from Warsaw, where it's 3 p.m. and you are now in Las Vegas when it's 6 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, a city that never sleeps, apparently.
Yeah, especially Las Vegas. You mentioned CX Blockchain Institute, which you are at. A few more words about this institute. How did it start? What are you doing?
Yeah, Victor, I was in Windsor and we were in a roundtable discussion about omnichannel. And as a marketer, we always say omnichannel works all the time. It's fantastic. It never fails. Well, we're actually kidding ourselves. And so on the plane back, I'm thinking through how do you fix omnichannel? And blockchain was my answer. And so in 2019, I founded an institute called the CX Blockchain Institute. We are located at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas Technology Park here in Las Vegas. And a bunch of different technology companies are in that technology park. And our main goal, Victor, is to implement blockchain in the contact center because, like I said, my background is in technology and a lot of our clients are in Silicon Valley. And a few years ago, they were talking about blockchain, implementing blockchain everywhere except the contact center. And as BPOs and your listeners know, a lot of times BPOs are the ugly stepchild of technology programs. We just don't get the budget. We don't get the attention. And so the contact center was never, ever discussed as an area where blockchain could benefit some of the processes and some of the administration and some of the agent workflows. But as you know, and as all of we know in CX, it's the heartbeat of every single organization. And so the Institute does 4 things. One is we come in and look at the organization through transformation audits, very similar to digital transformation audits when you're looking at customer journeys. We then see, hey, it could help here, here, and here. And then we implement it with our software team where they're implementing blockchain to help with workforce management, ERP and CRM and other things. And then I was involved heavily in the implementation of RPA through a very big, about $22 billion BPO worldwide throughout their organization and throughout their customer base. And what we found was that when you get to the site directors and the mid-market folks, they tend to sabotage technology programs. And so the other thing we offer, the third thing we offer is the training academy, helping them to understand how to market it, how to sell it, how to cascade it down to the agents, because as we know, they might sabotage it thinking that their job's going to be eliminated. And quite frankly, just the opposite. We help them to retrain and reprogram these frontline agents that potentially they wouldn't have to stay on a call or a a call center career, they could move into a blockchain career. And so we do that. But the most interesting thing out of everything that I just said is this. We have a very unique certification program whereby we certify the contact center after we implement blockchain to make sure that they're blockchain ready. And we've been lobbying a lot of the procurement folks, as well as some of those who are putting out RFIs and RFPs for 2023. And we believe that it's going to be another check the box that BPOs have to get through. PCI compliant, ISO, we've got that. But the third one's going to be, are you blockchain ready? So that certification process is an annual certification where we go by and certify them, give them the certification so that they have an additional qualification to differentiate themselves amongst the hundreds and thousands of BPOs worldwide.
A year program.
Yep.
How many attendees do you have?
Well, every year we go back to the BPOs and we certify them for being blockchain ready. Because as you know, some things might change from a policy, procedure, training, number of agents. And so we go back to their facilities and make sure that they're in compliance.
And is this a program which is like dedicated to the US based companies, or it's worldwide?
Worldwide.
Do you have any stats which are comparing where it's the most popular?
Well, it depends on where the BPO is located. So a very good example is one that's in France and is very big, begins with a T. You know, they've got 100, lots of different sites. And so it's all over. We certify that as an entity. So it kind of depends on where they're located.
Okay. You have recently issued such a document. I am showing it now to those who will watch us on the YouTube, but those who only listen to us, you need to imagine that I do have a printed report which Shelli shared a few days ago, and it was also a presentation which was used by you during the CXO 2022.
Yeah.
What did you focus on in this publication?
Yeah, so let me rewind about 3 years ago, Wiktor. So in 2019, when we founded the Institute, we wanted to go out and listen to the market, because if they said, hey, we don't require blockchain, we would go, all right, no problem. But what we found was quite different. So in 2019, we did a market intel research report that asked CX operators in the captive environment, and then as well, BPOs, where would you see blockchain being most effective to fix your pain points? Number one. Number two is where do you have some issues and where blockchain could fit? And so we did that. It was a 2019-2020 report. Of course, then the pandemic happened. So we took a pause last year in 2021. We brought it back this year, 2022. And that report that you have there compares and contrasts the 2019-2020 report to 2022. And it's kind of interesting what we found.
Yeah, so let's maybe go deeper a little bit into this. What was the most interesting part which has changed?
You know, what's changed most strikingly is this. BPOs and captive call center operators have gone from blockchain's kind of an interesting idea to, in the next 12 months, I'm seriously considering implementing blockchain to do a few things. One is help with omni-channel. As I said at the top of the podcast, that it doesn't necessarily work as we say it does, or ideally. Blockchain can help bring very disparate systems, very disparate databases and areas within an environment into one chain of data blocks. And so that was interesting. Second was interesting that compliance is a huge issue for BPOs worldwide. Why? Because now they've got a lot of, I think it's 60-40, 60% of their agents now are working from home. 40% of the time they go back to the brick and mortar environment. Well, work at home has challenges. Data security is one of them. And complying with all the regulations from a data security perspective, blockchain just is another good example, good solution to help do that.
I'm so happy that you are mentioning this security element when it comes to the home office or work outside of the office. Maybe we should call it like that.
Right.
I do underline it very often in here in Poland that it's so easy to move the work anywhere, but to move the security anywhere, it becomes a challenge. And for someone, it is a huge challenge, to be honest, to do that. So, okay.
Well, here's the point on that, Victor. One is that when you have work-at-home agents, hey, look, I believe that Asians, by and large, are very happy to do their job. They're trying to do their job. They're trying to do their best. But when they're at home, data is in motion from their PC, their laptop to the cloud. There's going to be a breach. It's just a matter of when. And so blockchain can be very instrumental in pointing out the exact location where that breach occurred. And that's going to be important, Victor, in 2023 as the world brings more data security, data breach regulations to the forefront. I think the Biden administration here in the US is leading that. And what they say is this: corporations have a smaller amount of time to tell the public, hey, your cell phone data has been breached, or hey, your passport data that's up in the cloud now, that's been breached and some dude is taking off with your passport. I'm being facetious there, but they have a smaller amount of time to figure it out and then also to communicate it, but then most importantly, to mitigate it.
So you say this is the change which comes in 2023?
Yes.
Whoa, this is the first time I hear it, to be honest. So whoa, yeah. This is really, really interesting. I'm looking very much forward actually to see more, let's say, regulations which touch this subject.
Well, here's the other thing that's interesting, Victor. I think it was Stephen Loyne who talked about the metaverse. You know, Stephanie Todd also mentioned about metaverse being the holy grail for contact centers as we look at new technologies coming down the pike. Metaverse cannot be the thing unless it's secured by something like a blockchain. Why? Because I don't believe, here's 3 vulnerabilities that I think your listeners should take a pause and think if they have it secured. One is in 2023, we have to figure out how we protect 3 things. One is personal digital identities, right? Because when we go into the metaverse, we're digital. We're not like this. We are an
avatars,
right? The second is digital assets. As I mentioned a little while ago, passports, stamping them, that's going to be gone. Probably not in 2023. It might be 2025, but literally you will not have a driver's license. You will not have a passport. Those assets are up in the cloud. And as we know, the cloud is hundreds and thousands of computers all working together to solve something. Well, who knows where those computers are? So that's important. The last thing is right management. Who has rights to your digital identity? Who has rights to your digital assets? And that's important because, and I'm not going to name the names, but certain really large corporations are lobbying to put your personal health records up in the cloud so that it's digital, so that your doctor has just a moment notice to pull it down from the cloud and it is out in the never land. That's a big issue, I believe, because that can be hackable. And that is why blockchain, now I'm not saying it's the end all be all, and I'm certain that there are probably risks and vulnerabilities with blockchain, but it certainly goes a long ways towards tokenizing and passwords and give me the place where you were born and those kind of things. It's just not working anymore.
Yeah, that's so right, so much right. We are now in such a transformation mode, yeah, because we still have those paper documents or the plastic documents.
Exactly.
But for example, I don't know how it's in the US, but I also have my ID on my cell phone, yeah. So, and my driving license is also in the digital form, but it is probably not as, first of all, secure and as perfect as it might be in the coming months or years, probably, because this is rather a long-term journey, technical journey in front of us. Yeah.
Let me compliment that. I just bought an electric truck. It it runs on our solar power. The way I open it is with my phone. It's with my phone. Problem is that if I miss my phone, I lose my phone, they can open my truck.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there has to be some sort of checks and balances to the digital identity that's on the phone, you know, paying for things, saying that you are you, that sort of thing. I don't think we're there yet, but you mentioned, hey, is the United States there with things like Apple Pay? I'll give you a good example. I'm not going to call him out, but we're at a bar. You're probably there in Vegas, and he's trying to pay with his Apple Pay. And they're looking at him like, do you have a credit card? And he says, no, it's on Apple Pay. So
Yeah.
I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah, we pay in here with our watches, you know. Yep. There is the NFC inside. Oh, by the way, anyway, let's move it aside. One thing from your report, because okay, we were talking about those blockchain impact on CX. That's fine, but in here you've got also something. What are the top factors to deploy in the next 12 months? Maybe let's focus on that a little bit.
Yeah, so we talked to both captive and BPOs, separated them. And we did this both in 2019 and 2020. And then we came back around in 2022 to compare and contrast. So I'm going to talk about the captive call center folks first. And 3 years ago, and I'm looking at my notes, so apologies if
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
So in the number one pole position was consistent omni-channel, which is exactly what we talked about in 2019 to say, hey, let's fix it. I think blockchain has some there. In second place, it was give me the right data so that I can give it to the agents to shorten support requests. Obviously, that makes a ton of sense because I was an agent long ago. You know, maybe 50 screens on one screen pop up. So I'm trying to figure out where am I going to go to get the answer. Blockchain can get you laser focused on the answer and get off the phone. And then cost reduction was in third place. And then as we talked about the same thing this year, what was in first place was getting that data, that right data to the agent at the right time to shorten that support request, and then consistent omni-channel. But what was interesting this year is that the top factor to deploy blockchain in 12 months, the next 12 months for captive call centers was that they wanted consistent and instantaneous access and first call resolution. That actually got up into a top one factor. So that's important because as you can probably see the theme here, right? Make sure everything is streamlined. That's the theme that we were seeing with the captive call centers, to make sure that everyone is efficient. Efficiency is the name of the game. It doesn't have to be necessarily cost effective, but efficiency certainly rules. Now, let's talk about the BPOs 3 years ago. Governance was a pretty big factor for them. 22% said that they want governance and compliance because they were getting dinged. It's probably the same as in Warsaw as in Las Vegas, is that it's a reality that you're going to get probably spun up into a data breach. You just don't know when. It just happens. So BPOs largely have a lot of customer data. We all know that. And so compliance was super important to them 3 years ago. In second place was providing the agent with accurate data so they can do their job. Now, fast forward to this year, when we asked that same question, what's the top factor to deploy in the next 12 months? Governance was still a top one motivator. They really are very laser focused with governance, partly because I believe some of this compliance and this regulation is coming down the pike in 2023, and they know it, and they have to solve for that. Now, what's interesting is this year, as we asked the same question, a top one motivating factor for the BPOs in particular was, help me differentiate myself amongst the hundreds of BPOs, probably thousands of BPOs worldwide. And they recognized that blockchain could be a first mover advantage for them. And being certified, that actually moved up as a top one motivator factor and helping them again, just stand out from the crowd. So those were the top factors that both the captive call centers and the BPOs told us were important to them. And as we pause and just think through what they're saying to us, we can say, I don't understand blockchain and forget about it. This is interesting and it's a little bit sci-fi. That's fine. I think we need to take a pause and listen to the market. They are telling us what they need. And we as CX operators have to take a look at this and take action, especially in 2023.
Come on, a few years ago, the chatbots were the sci-fi in the call contact centers.
Right,
yeah?
right.
The world is changing.
It is.
At the end of your presentation, you actually had a very nice paper with the top 10 CX blockchain takeaways. And those are really, really interesting ones. So we are approaching to the end of our talk today, but maybe let's go through that. Okay. If you could also open this on your monitor and we can deliver to our listeners and our viewers those 10 points, which actually are the CX blockchain takeaways.
Well, I appreciate that. I am going to just rattle off a few of them. I'm not going to share my monitor, but feel free to share that with your listeners or post that. Here, let me rewind a bit because I want to thank Genesis and GBS World for commissioning the research on behalf of the CX Blockchain Institute. They're a research house in South Africa, and we appreciate their help. Now, the methodology we used to research was this. We went out, as I mentioned, to the captive call centers as well as the BPOs, but we also talked to about 4 or 5 different verticals. And I don't have time today to go through that with you, but that research is about 50 pages worth. We'll go through some of those verticals, which is pretty compelling to BPOs who are trying to go after those verticals, because they could say, hey, I understand your pain points using our research. And then proposing, if I were a BPO, I would be selling this all day long, is to say, let's do a transformation and see where technologies may fit within your customer journey. And it might just so happen that blockchain could fix this. But top 10 takeaways. So one is, as I mentioned at the top of the call, is that folks are moving from, hey, it's an interesting idea, to we're actually going to implement it. So that was my top number one, is that blockchain isn't just a sci-fi, as I mentioned, it's reality. And as I mentioned prior, is that a lot of enterprises, particularly in the tech sector, and I'm talking about Silicon Valley, they were already talking about implementing blockchain around the call center, but not in the call center. And so now, call center needs to step up and take a look at where blockchain could fit. There's a greater understanding of where it could fit, obviously, because our research is saying that they think omni-channel is a good spot. They think empowering agents is a good spot. They truly believe that governance still plays a pretty big role in fixing some of the pain points that BPOs are experiencing now and probably into the future. So that is pretty compelling. And as you go into the verticals, we talk to the fintech and financial services and banking sectors, as well as insurance. And what they said was cybersecurity is a pretty big issue. I come from the payments, online banking software organization and a field. Prior to founding a few businesses back in the early 90s, I was in fintech when fintech was just a small little idea. Cybersecurity, every day, almost every moment of the day, there's a hack, and there's trying to penetrate into your environment. So cybersecurity is pretty key for them to lock that down. And there are organizations that are already in pilot with JP Morgan and some other Chase and some others. Blockchains certainly can help with real-time transactions, and this is a pretty big key for the retail and e-commerce industry. So supply chain, as we all know, was a huge issue during the pandemic, and it's still not fixed. So real-time transaction to see, where your dishwasher is it coming from Romania? Has it gotten to the UK? Is it in New York? It's pretty important, and blockchain can see that along the way and help to keep custody of that transaction. And some folks might say, don't we already have that? We have it, but as the pandemic showed us, it's not working like it should. So let's move into healthcare. That was another vertical that we talked to. And as I mentioned previously, verifying the data, the ID, some of the records, and keeping that in a custody of a block of data is important to healthcare as they move from physical records to in the cloud to something that's more secure, maybe a cloud-based blockchain, a private blockchain, specifically for that hospital or specifically for that clinic. And then telecom is the last one that we talked to, and they're all about Web 3.0, which I don't know if your listeners know, but Web 3.0 is all about giving the rights back to the people. Web 2.0 was, we don't have any rights, they're gonna surveil us, and all of your data is out there. Web 3.0 certainly wants to give us more power, and that is more popular than ever in telecom, where the device is you are your device, and 31% focus blockchain on a guaranteed data security and integrity, fraud prevention benefit for telecom. So that's pretty compelling as we close out the top 10 CX blockchain takeaways. The one I'll mention as I conclude my thoughts on that takeaway is this: blockchain is here. It's just, are we ready for it? And how do we get ready for it? We partner with those who have the implementation and the knowledge base, as well as the subject matter experts, to bring them in as part of our team. And the Institute does that with a lot of BPOs around the world.
Wow. That was a package of information. Shelli, one additional question. Are there many such blockchain institutes or organizations who touch this subject worldwide, or this is some kind of a unique thing which you do?
There are probably thousands of organizations who are doing something in blockchain. There are organizations that are consulting, like Deloitte and Accenture, and IBM actually has an individual program where I, Shelli Ryan, or you, Wiktor, can go be certified, but that's the individual. No one in the world is doing anything in the contact center, specifically for the contact center, and specifically at a price point that the contact centers can actually do something with. So that was the reason why we thought it was instrumental to focus on the contact center environment, the CX environment, to have something, a solution that speaks to them. And given that I've spun up some professional consulting teams within the CX environment to look at IVR and ERP and CRM, it only made sense to take that experience and transfer it into the Institute as, here's how we can implement it, and then give them something of value. Give the contact center that certification where they can differentiate them. Look, every day a BPO says, make me different. Like, well, you're kind of the same. People, process, and technology, everyone talks about that. But now a handful of the BPOs that have chosen to implement blockchain, they can literally say, I'm different.
Oh yeah, definitely yes. If somebody wanted to get more about this, what you do, to what webpage this person should go to?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So that report that I read out and you have, it's downloadable on our website, and our website is cxblockchain.org, and you can download that. But also there's a variety of different research beyond that report, as well as some best practices that call centers and CX operators can take a look at to inform themselves, educate themselves, and heck, we'll be happy to hop on a call and have a quick discovery session with them if they like that too.
You are also very active on LinkedIn, so I guess that if somebody would like to get some more details, they can drop to your LinkedIn page and just get in direct contact with you.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're also on LinkedIn, but also GBS World has profiles. We also have a profile there, so feel free to go there. And every time we get a review about the CX Blockchain Institute, we'll donate $10 to the organization Girls Who Code. So just a motivating factor to go there as well.
That's so nice. Shelli, it was absolutely a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so glad that we have met in Las Vegas. It looks like something what happens in Las Vegas doesn't stay always over there, but you can take something out of from the city. So anyway, thank you very much. I will do my best to make sure that this podcast is quite widely distributed, and also I will add those links which we were talking here about. So to your page, to your profile, so our listeners and viewers can have an easier way to get to more details about blockchain in CX world. But for today, I thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Wiktor.